What you're seeing behind me is one of multiple locations that have been burning largely peaceful demonstrations.
Be honest, have you ever used a fire extinguisher to put out a fire in an emergency? Okay, me either. But do you think that having a fire extinguisher adds value to your life? I'd say yes, absolutely. I mean, I have one under my sink and one in my garage. Now, do I walk around thinking about grease fires and how quickly I can put them out all day? No. That would be insane. I hope you don't either. That would be insanely stressful for no reason. I'm sure some of you know where I'm going with this, but for the ones who don't, hear me out. Not to sound like the part-time armchair philosopher that I can be sometimes, but I'm going to tell you some things you should already know. Society is defined by Oxford as the aggregate of people living together in a more or less ordered community. Now, your experience may vary, but ordered seems to be a sliding scale of chaos based upon where and who you live around. Remember a few years ago when the coof was the scariest thing and most of the country was locked down and riots and cities burning was common occurrence? Yeah, me too. Thankfully, I was blessed enough to live in God's favorite little tropical state of Florida. But for a lot of people in a lot of places, things got way out of hand very quickly. Now, society on a good day hangs by a thread. And when I say society, I'm talking about that more or less ordered community from earlier. And all it really takes for that thread to snap is about 3 days of people being interrupted from their normal daily routines, their resources, and their life. Now, I'm not saying that society isn't resilient or that order won't be restored eventually, but the key is to hold out and to hold on until eventually comes. Most people were able to observe the chaos from their living room TV or their phones while cities burned, stores looted, people assaulted, and they could almost marvel in the macabre, like watching a car crash on the interstate. Now, I'm sure that most people had the ability to think abstractly enough to realize there wasn't much stopping them from being the next victim in the torn thread of their society. They must have come to the realization that with emergency services heavily limited or not responding entirely, that it might be time to check under their sinks for that fire extinguisher. And maybe something a little more. As it turns out, a lot of people from all ages, areas, and walks of life realized that no one was going to prioritize their or their family's safety other than them. People were running out to gun stores and buying anything and everything they could get their hands on. And some of them were finally faced with the consequences of the harsh restrictions they themselves voted for. They knew in that moment what we knew all along. The thin veil of society, polite society, had been torn. Your job, your status, your neighborhood, your political and religious beliefs, how much you can squat, how good you are at jiu-jitsu, none of that was going to save you from those who meant you harm. The only thing that was going to stand in between you and those who meant you harm was a firearm and, more importantly, the skills to match. Now for me, I grew up in a household with guns. Now they were mostly hunting oriented and I rarely went out shooting as a kid, but I was very aware of what they were for and what they were capable of. Now, fast forward to 2015, my wife and I find out we're going to be parents for the first time. And I had that same realization that the people in the coof times had. How am I going to defend the people that I care about without a gun? Now, I had inherently already known this, but just like the people I spoke of before, I was finally confronted with the reality that I was able to ignore up until this point. I realized that perhaps my dusty pump-action 12-gauge shotgun under my bed might not be the best tool for every situation. So I set out to get my concealed carry permit. At the time in Florida, we did not have permitless carry. This then set me on the path to firearms enthusiasm, which I have not strayed from to this day. It looked cool, that's what's important.
It does look cool.
Now look, I'm not under the impression, nor would I try to convince you, that owning or carrying a firearm is some kind of invincibility hack that will shield you from any and all mortal danger. Just like my fire extinguisher isn't going to guarantee that my house won't burn down. In fact, owning and carrying firearms is an inherently dangerous activity. But being dangerous while having the control and discipline is what is going to stack the odds in your favor when a lethal situation ever finds you. If you've watched this far and you still aren't sure, even in these times, consider how you would navigate a less than ideal, more or less ordered community when order has left the room. Anyways, I gotta put this fire extinguisher back. See you around.